each day and coming out and wanting to be a part of it and getting a sense of their excitement.
Suddenly he started to realise just how many people were supporting him as he rode into Paris.
Into the Arc de Triomphe, the amount of people who wanted to be a part of it was extraordinary. I've lived in this little bubble. All that I've imagined in my mind's eye is my daughters and my wife and maybe my mum at the finish and a few close friends and family. But the reality, of course, is totally different. I think it's the only way you can think about things when you're an athlete, just in very, very simple terms. But the project had sort of grown bigger than my simple ambition. And, the people that wanted to be there and the wall of media asking crazy questions and 300,000 people watching it live online, it just becomes something which, from my sort of simple ambition to then this big public event was very different. And I'm not taking away from the finish, it was extraordinary, but I was definitely, shattered, but bit rabbits in the headlight, bit like, oh wow, this is, well, A, I can stop riding my bike, but B, the penny didn't really drop. It didn't really feel very real. It was all sort of taken out of my hands and there was just stuff happening around me. And I sort of lived in that bubble for a few days until I really felt like I'd stopped.
Yeah, so you left idiot mode.
Yeah.
We're talking about idiots, you went from being homeschooled to a PhD in the University of the World, having done a very lengthy course and numerous subject matters. What things do you think you've learned from the rides and the row, of course?
I think I've probably learnt a hell of a lot about the world, which makes you hopefully humbler and more intrigued and more willing to adapt. In terms of sort of that outward view, I've never been a competitive athlete where I'm trying to beat somebody else. I've been very competitive with myself, trying to push first and fastest. But it's always with an interest in the world that I'm taking these journeys on. So people also often say to me, "Why don't you go for the year record, the most miles cycled in a year?" With due respect, I love what they've done, but I can't imagine anything worse than leaving my front door every day just to ride miles. I ride my bike because of the places it takes me. The fact that, as I said before, every day is different. So whether I'm rowing a boat or climbing a mountain or whatever it is, it's that sense of self-propelled journey which has always fascinated me. And of course I've learned an absolute ton. And I guess where I am now, age 36 with 2 daughters, it's just the passion to bring the next generation into as much adventure as possible. So they have a similar quiet confidence to make their own mind up, to take on their own ambitions, to do things their own way. I mean, we live in a wonderfully diverse and interesting world, but there's a great commonality to it as well. There's a lot more, and I said this at the start, that joins us than separates us, and you have to experience the world firsthand, and I mean that, as opposed to just flying into a place and staying in a hotel and comparing it to home and talking about how different it is. I mean, actually join the dots between places and, understand the commonality. And I think that becomes a hugely useful toolkit for almost everything you do in life, because you respect things for what they are, but you also see you see what joins things up. And I think, if I'm explaining myself at all, that's probably the most useful part from having spent a life travelling.
What a story. Well, he's been continuing that life as an adventure cyclist. He's recently returned from Chile on a huge ride, and now he's travelling the country, telling people about his experiences on the road. If you get the chance to see him, I'd really recommend it. Thanks so much to Mark for being my guest on How to Be Superhuman, which is brought to you by Red Bull. Episode 2 sees us welcome the very special Diana Nyad. She swam through shark and jellyfish-infested waters to become the first person to ever swim from Cuba to Florida at the age of 64.
Tentacles wrapped around my neck, down the forearm. I was screaming out to Bonnie and the shark divers on the boat, "Help me, help, I'm on fire, help me." I couldn't breathe, but I swam.
You can find Diana Nyad's story in your podcast feed right now. And please remember, subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed this first episode. Also, get in touch with us on social media using the hashtag #RedbullHowToBeSuperhuman to share tales of your own superhuman feats. Or maybe suggest other people we can talk to with incredible stories. We'd love to hear from you. How to Be Superhuman is a Something Else production for Red Bull Media House.